Now, everyone's making it in film and TV, but we don't really know how. Here, we uncover the truth. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast, where we explore the truth about the film and TV industry and theatre and hear it directly from those who are smashing it in their areas. Today, we've got an absolutely amazing guest. She's an award-winning actor, a writer, a director, a producer, a future showrunner, and all-round great creative. We've got Tamzin Murray in the building. What's going on?
Hey!
Do you know what? I'm so happy that we made this happen, man. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a very long while.
I love it.
It's been a minute.
Definitely.
But we're here. We made it. We're doing it. We are here.
Yes, indeed. And you are doing bits, lots of bits.
Yeah.
I remember it was 2019 that when we did the Ross Awards, which I think we should probably bring back at some point.
I think you should too. It was great.
I think we should, You won an award for, I believe it was Rising Star.
Yeah.
And I remember that time because I think just watching you as a creative at that time, right? You were like, this was voted for by the public, innit? It weren't like they're sitting on. But I remember just watching you and loving creatives and loving creative work, and there was just loads of stuff that you were doing, and I felt like it made sense and it was well deserved. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to know, I think in seeing you at that time, I thought, okay, cool. This is how it goes. People, because I remember you were in Pride and Pack, and then you did your own short with CJ Beckford, and that was amazing. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this is exciting. The process happens where it's like, cool. They keep doing a few independent projects. They get signed and they get into, a mainstream project, and then the roles get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember maybe like a few years after, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, I wonder, where's Tamzin? What's going on? So before we touch on what's happening today, I kind of want to take it back to around 2019, 2020. And
what was going on then?
Yeah, like after that award, what was happening?
I think a lot was happening, and a lot was happening in that time, both professionally and personally. And so when I spoke to you, I was working on the play that I've actually just done now. But it was in its baby seed form. And so I was working on the script, and I wanted to do a private reading just with some theatre heads, to really flesh out the script, to just figure out what was working and what wasn't. And I did that. And then the pandemic happened. So that kind of took out a whole load of time. And I was still able to write during that time. I was still able to create, but I also kind of was going through a really interesting time with acting as a whole, and I was questioning it, and I was questioning whether or not whether or not I should be doing it, but how best to do it. Because there is a lot within acting that just isn't in your control. You don't have a say in a lot of regards. And so there was a lot of decisions that were out of my hands. And so I was trying to figure out what the best next step was. And at the time I was working at a foster care agency. And I worked with some incredible families. And I was just like, God, if you don't want me to produce, because at the moment my life is very mainstream. I have a 9-to-5. I work at a foster care agency. If this is not what you want me to do, I will stay here. Just take the desire away. But if you do want me to do it, then I need you to open a door or a window or something. Because right now I have a desire to produce, I have a desire to act. And at the moment, I can't see any of them happening. And so I just prayed that prayer and just left it there. And then I saw this advertisement come up for the NFTS, the National Film and Television School. And I was like, that sounds really interesting. Just going to check it out. And I went on the website and I was like, okay, well, it's really expensive and I have no business doing a master's. I didn't even have a degree. So it really was a thing of, I have no business looking at a master's degree. But there was something on their website that stood out to me, which spoke about experience. And so if you have experience, still apply and we'll be able to have a conversation. And so I prayed about it again. And I was like, I have such a love-hate relationship with the education system. So it just really was a thing of, I absolutely love to study and I love to learn. But I think when I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I didn't stick to it. I didn't stick to studying. And so very long story short, I applied, I got in, I actually got a scholarship to go, and they looked at the experience that I had in the industry prior, and they said that that was enough. They said that it had spoken for itself, and the head of department at the time wrote a supporting statement to say why he believed that I should be on the course. And so that was where I disappeared to. I went and did my master's. I think with acting, I had been doing it for quite a while. And with producing, I didn't know as much about it. I didn't know how to produce something technically. I'd been doing it, but I'd been winging it. And so I wanted to actually learn what I need to look out for, you know, what challenges might come up, but also how to do it well, how to do it professionally and to understand it technically as well. And so, yeah, I went, did my master's, became a student again. And I literally graduated this year. I graduated in February. Wow. So yes, that's where I disappeared to. So I still was the rising star. I just was in hibernation. I was in my little cocoon and I was really knuckling down just because if you want to be good at something, I think studying it as much as possible and spending time with it as much as possible. And I found that even with acting, you know, I want to go back and train just so that you are consistently keeping yourself sharp. You know, as a producer, I feel confident. As an actor, I feel confident, but I always don't think you should settle. I think you should always want to be better, want to refine. There's always something new you can learn and do. And I think the idea of that excites me. So yeah, that's where I was.
Amazing. Now, the National Film and Television School it's like one of the best. It's a very prestigious, like, I don't know if I'm right in calling it just a film school, but is top notch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what would you say you learned?
Well, I was in TV entertainment. So my master's is in directing and producing TV entertainment. And I had no idea at all. So I actually learned everything because I was coming in as a complete newbie, and I really respected them for bringing me in as somebody who didn't have as much experience, where a lot of my peers in my class had experience in that front. But them believing that I would be able to catch up and I would be able to get to the same level as everybody else and we'd all be on par. So I definitely learned about TV entertainment. I learned a lot about running a production, a full scale production, managing a budget. I learned a lot about, I think, bringing together a casting crew. I kind of already was familiar with doing that. But things like risk assessments, child licenses, running a TV studio, because it was directing and producing, my course meant that I came in close proximity with multi-camera directing and how you run a studio, how you lay out a camera script, you know, liaising with script supervisors, your soundies, your lighting, all of that. Yeah, I learned pretty much all of it in 2 years. Yeah.
this is amazing. So,
It was great.
and I'm so happy that you went and learnt those other competencies, right? I think that's
Yeah.
probably the best way to say it. But
Yeah.
the reason I say that is because, we're in the age of multi hyphenates, and I think even before you went to go and study, like you said, you were producing, you've been writing, you've been directing. So it seems like, I think maybe people may have seen you more as an actor. I definitely did back in 2019, because that's maybe what I saw more of. But it seems like in this time, the fullness of you as a creative has been built upon, which is quite interesting. But I would ask you, right? So in those years of, okay, directing, producing, learning all of these technicalities and logistical things that I need to know.
Yeah.
What was happening with your desire for acting? And because it seems like, was that just on hold for like 3 years then?
It kind of was. It kind of was on hold in that I couldn't work. I couldn't really work professionally because the master's was very full time. It was full on. And I had an amazing agent at the time who wanted, he let me stay on his books. And he was just like, I completely understand. Just let me know when your holidays are and I will work that out for you. It was really, really, really lovely. And I think it got to the second year where I realized this is a lot. Like it's actually not even fair to be on someone's books and like occupy that space. But I had an interesting period with acting right before I actually started my master's, where, like I said, I wasn't sure whether or not it was what if it was what I was supposed to be doing. In as much as I knew I had a gift and I loved doing it, things weren't working out that were allowing me to do it. So I was like, maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else. And if that's the case, show me the way. And of course you fall into like doubt, you fall into fear, you fall into all of these little traps that are always laid out along the way. And I kind of did put it on a back burner because it just wasn't happening. So I was like, if it's not happening, maybe it's not supposed to happen in this way or at this time. And so maybe there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing. And it's really interesting. In my second year of acting, because I literally, I didn't want to watch anything. I didn't want to see anything that reminded me of acting. I didn't want to, I was really in a bubble with acting where I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this. And so what did I do? I stopped watching shows. I was like, I don't want to watch anything. I don't want to see anything because I can't look at it without being in love with performing. And so it was quite difficult to watch it just as an audience member. And plus I had loads of work to do. So I was just burying myself in my degree. But in my second year, where I was living had this beautiful window, which was perfect for self-tapes. Natural lighting was great. And I just started taping. I don't know what it was that prompted it. I think I might have been watching, I can't remember what I was watching. It might have been Scandal or something like that. I was rewatching something. I just slowly started to rewatch things that I'd watched before. And I wanted to understand how the pilot, like how the first episode of Scandal was made, what the structure of it was. I wanted to really understand the text. So I was watching it for research and falling in love with the journey. And I was like, I remember that feeling when I was a kid and I first started acting, and I would watch a film and I would pause the film after every line and write down what they were saying. And then I'd take the script that I've now typed up and I'd read it back. I'd play it and I'd play the character and I'd do it in a different way. And I'd like perform to myself. Nobody was watching, but it was this really raw. I didn't know anything about script databases. So I would type it up and I would teach myself the scripts and I'd become the character. And that would be men, women, old guys, like all types, like animal, like everything I would become. And it kind of felt like that at the beginning of my second year in my master's. And so I was like, you know what? I still love acting just as much as I've ever loved it. I am going to treat this time as a time to train, as a time to practice. I'm going to treat my life as if I've got 2 days to learn a self-tape. And so I'm going to learn a script. I'm going to learn a monologue, or I'm going to learn a scene in 2 days, and treat it as if somebody's just sent me an audition and I have to know it and I have to deliver a self-tape. And I'm going to make sure that my self-tape setup is on point. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready for when that time comes, so that I don't have the excuse of I'm really busy, because life gets busy. And there will be times where you're really busy, but I want to be in the habit of being able to say, okay, cool, I've got a tape, my setup's here, I'm going to learn it, bash it out, and then that's it. So I fell back in love with acting in the second year of my master's, but I did definitely put it on hold for a while. Yeah.
I love that. That is, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It seems like there was this honesty and peace that you came to, right? Which I'll break down what I'm saying. So like the first year where you kind of made peace with not acting.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Logically, I'm not going to do it, but my heart is still, like when it's a raw wound and you're like, oh, so it's like, no, I don't want to watch anything.
Yeah.
Which may speak to the fact that that desire is still there, but you're logically keeping it there, which is, willpower. That's great.
Yes,
but then what seems to have happened is there's this nice blossoming of like, I don't know when.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do this in the meantime. And if something happens, cool. If not, which is very nice. It's that there's not a desperation.
Yes. And I think that came through my master's. I'm really grateful that I did the course, because I think my confidence grew a lot, and it grew. And I feel like I kind of had that years ago, and over the years it dwindles and it disappears and it's not what it was. But when I was younger, I had that confidence of this thing will happen when it's supposed to happen. And all you need to do is nurture your gift, nurture your talent, and don't lose the sense of play or the sparkle, the thing that makes you. Don't lose that. And I think doing my master's reminded me of that. I was looking back at the journey, and I had to, even at the end of my second year, I had to reflect on my time and, share how it's been and what did I learn. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to bang down every single door in a desperate manner in the way that I did, because actually doors will open as and when they're supposed to open. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'll be seen. And it's not hiding. It's not saying, oh, everybody should come to me, but it's just do what you do, care about it, love it, do it well, try your best to do it well, even if it doesn't go to plan. Like, we're allowed to have first drafts, we're allowed to have first attempts, and it might not be perfect, but you're doing something and people see the something that you're doing, and people care about that because you care about it. Whereas when I think what had started to happen is I was like, I need to do this. It's my bread and butter. And it was my life. But it meant that I was showing up in rooms with my bills and everything else that it not that it doesn't matter, but that's not how I should be showing up in the room. But I'm showing up like, I need this to work. I need this to be the thing. Whereas now it's different. I'm like, if it doesn't work, it's okay. If that way doesn't work, that's okay. Because how it is supposed to work, it will happen. And if not, you learn a lesson and you take the lesson and you run with that lesson because it will make you better. So yes, that's what happens.
Wow. I love that. That's so key, because it's not a, it's a journey. It's not a race.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you know,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you see it as a race, you will start to compete in ways that you don't need to compete. It's not a competition. There is more than enough room for every single one of us to hold space, because every single one of us is talented and has been given a different stream of, it's like, someone said this once, and I can't remember who it is, but whoever it is, they will know. But someone said it once about cookies. You could go into the cookie aisle and it's literally a cookie aisle. There's so many brands, but my brother is a diehard chocolate biscuit fan. Do you know what I mean? But I know people that ride for custard creams, and my grandma rides for rich tea. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very specific.
Yeah.
And on some days you might want all three. You might want crackers. You might, do you know what I mean? Like, it's very, very, very specific. Every single one of them is just as good as the other. Do you know what I mean? But there is a specific day where you're feeling, or a specific time where you're feeling for something. And I think there is more than enough space in our very highly saturated industry for all of us. And it's finding a way to be content with where you're at, while also still striving for where it is that you want to be. But I think when you're content with where you're at, it allows you to be there comfortably and to do well there. So yeah.
Wow. I love that. The wisdom. What did they click, isn't it, at the poetry and stuff? Yeah. No, I love it. So you've done the masters, right? And as well as going on an amazing journey as a creative, an amazing creative journey. So, you know, you've got the qualification, and the personal work has taken place. So then, what's happened now?
What's happened now? What are you asking me?
So, like, in terms of where you were at when you finished, what were you looking to do?
So when I finished, I knew. So towards the end of my master's, I think probably the last 6 months, I'd settled. I want to become a showrunner, and I didn't really fully know like how. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Wow. I knew I still wanted to perform. I knew I wanted to produce. I knew I wanted to create projects and either write them all myself or collaborate with writers and have a writer's room, and we create, whether it's a series or it's a film or whatever that may be, but we create something that we can put out that we can then bring other actors into. And I knew that was my desire. And I before, it felt like I was doing 50 million things and it was difficult to know what it is.
Yeah.
And my master's helped me to see that's what it is that I want to do. You know, and I started to see the examples of people who do that really well. So, you know, we talk about Shonda Rhimes. I think we spoke about her. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she did that. And she performed in the very thing that she created, you know, Michaela. Like, there are people who are doing these things and doing them well. And a lot of the examples that I'd looked at before were American examples. And it was only recently I started to look at who we have here and how they're doing it well here. And so, yeah, I knew I wanted to do that. And so I think in December.
Oh, before we get to December, right? Could you break down what a showrunner is, please?
In my understanding of what a showrunner is, so a showrunner is essentially the producer and creator of a particular show. Okay. They run the show essentially, and so that would be all of the producing responsibilities. So the cast, the crew, the script. Sometimes the script can be solely by that person. Other times they might have collaborators who work on the script with them.
To like oversee the overall vision of where the show's going. Okay. Yep.
Exactly. The attention to detail to the things that go in. So the certain musical choices, or they would hire people to do these things, but they would have a say in what that looks like and how that shapes up to be. And there are some people who choose to be in the projects that they create as well.
Yeah.
But there are also people who don't. And so they would say, okay, I'm not going to be a part of that, but I want to facilitate the functioning of this thing.
Got you.
So someone like Issa Rae would be a great example that people probably would connect to, where she's come up with this whole entire thing of Insecure, and being able to run that, but also being able to be in it. Yes. And then you can have producers working within that, but you're still the overarching creator of that particular show.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Yes.
So yeah, you were saying in December.
In December, you're kind of winding down. I'd done my graduation project, which was a 24-minute pilot. It was a children's puppet show musical, which was very fun, very ambitious. And so I'd been working on that, and we finished that October, November. And so I was like, okay, what is in my hand? What have I been sleeping on? What do I want to do next? And Donuts and Ice Cream is a play that I'd written, a short play that I'd written years ago. And then I'd started the draft for the full-length one before the pandemic. And so it had kind of been in the back of my mind, and it's always been there. And I'd been thinking throughout my master's, would it work as a TV show? Would it work as a series? Would it work as a film? How do I want it to be? And so I knew when I came out of school, that was the first thing that I wanted to focus on. I had other ideas and other things that I wanted to create, but I was very much determined to do the first thing that I had in my mind, to commit to doing that. And if I do that, then I will do the other things. No more unfinished projects. That was my thing. Coming out, nothing is being left unfinished again. So yes, I talk a lot, don't I?
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. You're saying all the right. There's no waffle here. So
so basically I came out and I'd started working on the full-length script. I just started working on that, and I'd actually also started writing the pilot episode just to see what that would look like and start to frame whether that could work. And so I think Sunday I shared a testimony. It was a Sunday. Was that a Sunday? That's a lie. It was New Year's Eve. It might be Sunday. I don't know. I shared a testimony at my church on New Year's Eve. And Ryan, who's a really good friend of mine, was there, and he heard the testimony and he reached out and was like he was really blessed by the testimony. Let's do your show. And I was like, me? You want to do my show? Okay, that's really cool. My show that I was still writing. So I was like, this is amazing. And I think it's that thing of like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. I was already halfway through writing the script, so I didn't have to start from scratch. It was more just now I had a deadline of when I needed to finish the script by, and I had something to work towards and someone who was willing to do it with me. And so, I knuckled down, started writing, and he was like, yeah, we're going to do it in March. And I was like, that's great, because March was the time that I said that I wanted to do it by. And he was like, it's going to be tight, but we can aim for it. And so I initially was aiming for March just because the subject matter is around a condition called endometriosis, and their awareness month is March. So that was my ideal target. And then eventually we shifted the dates to April, just because there was something that we couldn't do within the venue. So we needed to actually move it. It was out of our control. But yeah, basically knuckled down, started writing, and then had to think about, okay, who's going to play what role?
Before that, right, though, hold on, sorry. Like, you kind of, I just want to bring into the foreground who Ryan is. So,
yes.
Ryan, my friend.
Oh, Ryan.
Can you, he has been making a huge amount of noise in theatre, like mainstream theatre as well, in the past 2 years with for Black Boys. Could you give a bit of context to like what he's done and stuff?
What he's done. Yeah. Ryan Calais Cameron is a brilliant writer, and creator of work in our industry. He has worked, obviously, like we spoke about, on For Black Boys, which is running in the West End now, which has just done so incredibly well. It's so moving, it's so touching, it's so real. I remember the first time I saw it as this thing hits deep. But also Queens of Sheba, which did its UK US tour, that has been doing crazy things. It's so brilliant, and the casts have consistently been strong. It's a female cast, they are brilliant. Jessica Kalisa is the director of Queens of Sheba, and she is fantastic. That woman is fantastic, and has really brought that to life. So they work together in that. But he's done other shows like Typical, and Resonate. He's done a lot of work with his company Nouveau Riche. And it's amazing to be able to have content like this. There was a show that Ryan did called Retrograde, which was also another really strong piece, which I believe was about Sidney Poitier. And it was really strong, really witty, very, very well done. And I think that there's something to be said about when you take something and you try your hand at something new or a new style, and you want to see what that looks like. And he's exceptionally talented, and it's an honor. He started delving into TV, and it's an honor to see that transition and see how it works. And it is someone to be very excited about. Definitely.
I love that. So you and Ryan,
me and Ryan
are working on this play. But you were talking about the cast. I just want to share.
I should also add, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking I should also add the writer of Queens of Sheba, Jessica Hagan, is another one who is fantastic. She's amazing. So between Jessica Hagan, Jessica Kalisa, and Ryan Kelly Cameron, all three of those are forces to be reckoned with. They are so talented. And all three of them are people who, in the theatre world and beyond, I think we should all be very excited about, because they're just scratching the surface.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. It's cool. So you've got the A team. You've got the A team on board for this amazing story and project, right? And you were talking about cast.
Yes, cast. So I didn't think casting would be I didn't think it would be difficult, because I had done the play before, like I said, and there was three other main actors. And then when I did the full length draft, I was like, actually, I think I want to include a guy. And so I think I want to keep two women and have a guy on board. And so the story is about a young woman who is on a lengthy journey to being diagnosed with a condition called endometriosis. And it shows how that affects her day to day. So endometriosis can affect fertility in some cases. But on a day to day basis, it's often the reason behind severe stomach cramps, back pain, nausea, fainting, dizziness, all of that type of stuff. And so it affects 1 in 10 women. It's quite widespread, but it takes 8 to 10 years to diagnose oftentimes. So it takes a really, really long time. And so people are living with this condition, being in pain, having to show up to work, having to show up to their families and everything else that they are required to show up to. But often living with a pain that people can't see, a chronic pain that people can't see. And so I wanted to tell that story. And so with the cast, I knew that there was the girl who's going through it, plus her 2 best friends. And from the original cast, they get first dibs. So I was like, do you guys want to be on board? And they was absolutely. So I was like, great, I've got my girls.
Wait, so Deja and Jessica were in the first?
No, so Jessica was in the first one and Deja wasn't in the first one.
Okay.
So there's another girl called Oyen who's also fantastic and is a brilliant Gabby. And so she got first dibs. And then she couldn't do it just because her schedule had changed and she wouldn't have been able to make the run of the show, the evening performances. So I was like, okay, I need to find somebody else. But I didn't want to cast for it. I didn't want to cast for it just because I was sure that I would be able to find someone where that dynamic would just. And Deja, the brilliant human being that she is, I did when Jessica was casting for Queens of Sheba this time around, there was a day where they needed someone to fill in as one of the readers to work with the actors. And so she asked me, I did that. And that was where I met Deja. And I thought, this girl is fantastic. She's funny. Her humor. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Deja is the funniest person. And her and Jessica were just going back and forth. And I was like, this needs to be captured. Some way, somehow it needs to be captured. So when I was thinking about casting, and I was like, do I need to cast? And I was like, is there anyone I know? Before I cast it, there must be someone that I know. And I remembered that day and I remembered that encounter. And I was like, if she's free, seeing these two on stage would be amazing. Because I knew Jessica was on board already. And Deja said yes. And I was like, I have my girls. Because they smashed it. They are so good together. It was brilliant. So that was behind that. And then Dwayne, I knew I wanted to have a male character in the story because I wanted to show how sometimes these conditions can affect the person who is supporting you. And so I wanted to show that, yes, through the friendship route, but also through the partner, and how it affects him. And it was still something, the play that we did, it's a work in progress. So it's still something that we're exploring, but I wanted to show how it can affect him, how sometimes we forget to ask, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Because it does affect the other person, even though you're the one that's physically going through it. And I also didn't want him to be squeaky clean. I wanted someone who was a little bit rough around the edges because I wanted him to feel human. I wanted him to feel like somebody that I know who is doing their best to show up and doesn't always get it right and doesn't always say the right thing, but actually his heart wants to be there and his heart wants to support. And Dwayne is a beautiful gift to our industry. He's so talented. He is a talent. Oh my gosh. But also he's like a sponge. And he just absorbs everything. And you can give him a note, he'll take that note and run with. He's fantastic. He's really, really, really great. So we had a really strong cast on board. And that was one thing I could tick off quite early on and say, cast we've got. So it was great.
I love it.
Yeah.
So then in terms of director, you've got the cast, which is obviously so key, but then because you didn't direct, right?
Yes.
On this. So where did you find a director for it?
Where did I find the director? From heaven. She was a gift. An absolute gift. When we first started the project, there was a director who was working with Nouveau Riche at the time. And so I thought if we could get the director who is working with them already, at least they're familiar with how they work and how, the type of show that we're creating. And so I was in talks with the director to be on board. But scheduling wise, they weren't able to do it. So that was absolutely fine, but it meant I had to find somebody. And so I asked a few people in theatre that I knew, do you know anyone who might be interested in either this or future projects? And Danielle was recommended. And I went on her page and saw her beautiful work that she's done and smiling face. And I reached out. And I didn't know her at all, but I reached out, and she said yes. And we had a meeting and it was great. We realized that we actually had worked in the same theatre company that we went to as kids. We'd both been there. So even though it was at different times, we'd kind of been in the same
Yeah.
space. And so I was like, oh, that's it. She's great. If you've been there, you're great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she came on board, and I think she's fantastic because there was a lot of things we didn't have a budget. So there was a lot of things that were challenges for us, and a lot of things that we needed to change and tweak. And Danielle rode that wave with grace, with professionalism, with skill, with joy. She was fantastic. She's a really, really amazing person to work with. So overall, like the whole team was great. And I think it was a great start for me to the types of shows that I create, types of projects that I create. I always want the team to be strong.
Yeah.
I want it to be that everybody is passionate about what they do, but also respectful and able to just laugh. And it shouldn't feel like a chore,
Yeah.
you know, because you're going to have challenges that come along the way. So if you're working with a team who is already really, really just warm, it allows you to ride those things, whatever they are, whether they're personal or professional, to ride that wave as smoothly as possible. So yeah, we were really blessed. Really, really blessed.
I love it. I love it. And for like the play is amazing. I've told you so many times. But what else? And do you know what? I love the do-it-yourself mentality and creative way of exploring the idea and bringing it to life. Because it's like, look, I've got this idea. You know, whoever, BBC haven't commissioned me yet, but I know this thing, it lives inside of me and I just want it out. And I'm a creative, so
yeah,
I've got it done. Which I think would be really inspiring for a lot of people, right? So
yeah,
I would ask you, in that vein of like just getting it done, how did you finance it? Because
how did I do what?
How did you finance it? Like in terms of, because it's your own play, isn't it? So I'm like,
that's such an interesting question. There was no budget. Yeah, there was no budget at all. And so this project was created to be like black box theatre. So very stripped back. It's a workshop production. We did a workshop production. And so the idea is that it's very stripped back, you know, no set, very, very minimal costume if you're going to have costume. The lighting would be the lighting, of course, that's provided by the theatre. It's a stripped back type of show, but it's also great because, and one thing that I've learned from doing it in that way, and the desire to do it in that way, is your work then has to hold up. Your script has to hold up. And your cast have to hold up because there's nothing to hide behind. There isn't bells and whistles. There isn't a grand set. There isn't a whole load of money. And those things are incredible additions. Yeah. You do need those things. But when everything is stripped back, it's like singing a cappella. Do you know what I mean? Where you have to be able to really hear the script, and the talent is the only thing that you can see if everybody is in. You know, which is why Queens of Sheba was fantastic. The writing was brilliant. The talent was brilliant. And so it meant that even though you didn't have all of these crazy bells and whistles, what you had was strength. You had a lot of talent. And so, yeah, that's what it was created to be. So there was no budget. There was no budget. And I just finished being a student. So there was no budget. But what there was some incredible people who were just so willing to be on board and to help where they can. Yeah. And like little things, like we had these curtains as part of our backdrop, and we knew we wanted to have some type of a silhouette effect, and I think we were quoted hundreds when we spoke to set designers and stuff like that. So we were like, okay, we're not gonna have set, that's all right. We'll cross that off, we're not gonna have that. But we were like, we must be able to find some type of a curtain, some type of something that might make it work. And if it doesn't work, we send it back. It doesn't work. But if we can see if that works, then we'll do that. So scouring Amazon, looking for something that would be appropriate. And I found a curtain that was long enough. So I ordered one, we'd see if that works. It worked. fantastic. Now we just order multiple of these and it's not expensive. We're not breaking the bank and it does what we want it to do.
Yeah.
And so little things like that where you have to get really DIY with it. We could have chosen not to have it, but we wanted it. So we got it.
Yeah.
But we had to find an inexpensive way to do that. So yeah, I think people definitely probably would be wanting to know about budget and how you make something work on no budget.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's actually just faith and favor. And I know that sounds to a lot of people like, oh, like what else though? There has to be. So a massive part of it is faith and favor. And I can't say that it was people being willing to help. That's favor. And I can't negate that because it's just people coming on board, friends of mine who aren't stage managers, but who would come on board because they've got organization skills and they can manage our do you know what I mean? That's favor. But then the practical side of it is you may have to dip into your pocket and you know, don't break the bank. I wouldn't advise anybody to break the bank. You know, don't do that. Don't do that. But like I said, I was a student, okay? But I also knew that there were some things that we needed to have.
Yeah.
And so it's how do we make this work? If I've only got you for one day, if I am paying for one day with a member of the crew or a member of like someone who can help, how do I make that day as productive as possible? How do we make the most out of it? So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, because I guess my answer is we didn't have a budget.
Nah, do you know what? It really does. And one thing I want to say to you is that it didn't feel like that at all. And I think you hit the nail on the head where, like, all right, for me, it's two things, right? It didn't feel like there was no budget because the story was that good. Like, one of the things for me is when I was watching it, I was like, TV show. This needs to be a TV show. I want to see this as TV. Like, I just kept, like, because the quality of what, like, the storyline and everything, like, basically, you made a story that revolved around endometriosis. I know that's not the key theme, but that was like a key part of it.
Yeah.
Entertaining and engaging for the whole way through. And that is like, and I was saying this to you actually, it's like, you know, sometimes you'll see like short films of charities and all of that stuff, and it's touching on the story, but the thing's not engaged. It's well done and shot and stuff, but like, and that's why, you know, children need a break. And it's like,
exactly. It feels like
like you respect
you can feel the campaign.
Yeah, that's it. You respect it, but you're not, your heart's not in it. But this one, I was in it. Oh man, like anyway, anyway, what's going on. But no, it was like really amazing, and I think it's to your point about, look, if we don't have a budget, well, your story should be strong anyway, innit? But using what you have, we've got some sort of something. We can buy a curtain from Amazon.
Yeah, buy a curtain.
But everything was so tight, and I think my second point, after saying that the story was amazing, that's what helped to hold it up, was with whatever props or set design you could do, the creativity of it being all together. I can say this all now because, you know, the show's over, but like, you know, the boxes, lighting up, and then, like you were saying, the silhouette and like the receptionist, the NH, I was like, and then the curtains when you're pulling it down because of the, it was great use of what you have, and it didn't feel budget to me. So
that makes me very happy. That genuinely, thank you so much, because it was tough financially. It was tough. And I knew coming into it, I didn't have a budget to bring to it. But what we had was, we had a space. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were given the space to use, which was amazing. So it's like, you've got this space, you've got a story, tell the story.
Yes.
And, you know, like, tell the story. And of course, there are going to be holes. There's always going to be things that you can work on or improve or do better. But what you've got is a foundation. You've got something that's got legs, and you are now just finding things that can help to bring that to life. Danielle is amazing. When we spoke about, okay, we don't have a budget, we don't have, we're not going to have a set, we're not going to have these things. She was like, okay. She's like, can we have boxes? Boxes? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want boxes. And it was like her problem solving was just, her creative instincts, her director hat literally was like, how am I going to make this thing work? And something that would have been scary for a lot of people, maybe, I don't know if she felt that inside, but if she did, she didn't show it. She literally was like, okay, I need boxes. And if we can get a curtain, that would be great. And I'm like, we're going to get a curtain, we're going to get boxes. So we got the boxes. Again, just went online, found boxes. And yeah, we were like, we're going to make this work. How do we make that dynamic? And then that's Danielle thinking, okay, I want these boxes to move. How do we move them? How do they move around the space? Okay, we can't show a hospital bed, but how can we show something that is adjacent to, or that represents that, or gives the feel of that? Yeah, she's brilliant. She's really brilliant, honestly.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So now that, not now that. So what I wanna it's not uncover, but after all of this, Favor, putting your best foot forward, using what you have, what was the result?
What was the result? There's been some interesting conversations that have been happening, which is always great. Interesting meetings that have been happening, which is also great. I think what I want is a house for this show to exist in. So a theatre that this show can exist in. And the dramaturgy support to facilitate that, so that the things that I know I'm still working on or still trying to figure out, someone who can come on board and be a sparring partner so that we can get it where I want it to be. That's what I want. And I've had some good conversations, and I'm yet to have some great conversations.
Yes.
Feedback has been amazing, and a few people have reached out. And so that's come off the back of this workshop. And yeah, so literally that's come off the back of it, finding somewhere for this to exist for a longer run and for a stronger run. But also the dramaturgical support, which I think would be useful, that's also come forward, which is amazing. So yeah.
And also, one of the things that came from it was that it was a sold out run, which
it was a sold out run. It was sold out. The first night, it was sold out. The first night sold out, I think, on the day. So we knew we'd have like maybe half an audience. And I was like, that's great. It's the first night. It's preview. This is fine. No, that thing sold out, and it just continued. And so I was like, guys, if you haven't got your tickets, I don't know what to say, because it sold out quickly, and so many people were like, oh, you didn't get tickets, like, we're trying to get tickets, can you? And I'm like, we've even maxed the reserve, like there's like a reserve seating area for like latecomers, and or not latecomers, but for people who trickle in at the end. And no, even that was we sold out. And you could feel it in the room, like the rooms were full. So yeah, I had a sold out run of my first workshop production. Yay!
I love it.
And the feedback, it was great. It was really, really great. I had some people come from the community who have endometriosis or support people with endometriosis. And honestly, I felt people would find it funny, but I was like, if that is not met, if people who have this do not connect with it, then the whole play is a write-off, because that's really who I'm doing it for. Like, it can be funny, but if you're not hitting your point, then what is the point? But the feedback was amazing, and it was really affirming to know from both people who have it and also partners of people who've had it, just giving really, really, really touching feedback of how different elements resonated with them in completely different ways. And it wasn't actually just this condition. People came who had just had bad experiences with doctors, or just had experiences with fibroids or any other condition. It still was able to resonate with them as well, which was really, really, really touching, and also encouraging to know if this is the first draft, then I'm on the right track. You know, I'm on the right track.
No, we love that. We love that. And like I say this, I'm sure in addition to so many people, we're really, really, really proud of you. So
thank you.
No, I'm glad it was a success. Before we go, is there anything that you wanna share, or is there anything on the horizon?
Oh, what does that even mean?
So, I guess things that you may be working on. I mean, so donuts and ice cream, that's in the works, isn't it? But
yes.
You know, as a showrunner, I'm sure you have so many other shows in the back burner and ideas that you want to bring to mind and stuff. So, I guess what's on your mind whilst donuts and ice cream is playing out?
So I have 2 other theatre show ideas at the moment. One of them, which I've started working on this week. I was like, I'm going to have a couple of days to rest and then I'll be back. Just a couple of days. I need to sleep. But once that's done, I will be back. And so there's one that I want to do this year. I'm not going to give a date yet. I would personally love it if it was just after summer. It feels like a nice feel good type show. A family show. Like it's that's kind of got my heart. And so I'd love to do it September times, August times. But I'm not going to set a date. But that's what I'd love. And then there is another one, but I need to research.
Okay.
So there's another project that I want to research. And so I think that I would do that next year, but I will start the research from now. I'm starting that from right now. So yeah, there's 2 other theatre productions that I have in mind that I'm working on. And then donuts and ice cream, continuing that life, continuing to work on that. And yeah, what becomes of it, everyone's like, it should be a series. I'm like, it should be. So that pilot that I started, I will continue working on, and then we'll see what happens there. So yes, very exciting.
I love that. Well, Tamzin, it was amazing having you on the pod today. Thank you.